Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there, so please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money, so check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
I'm Niall. And hey, Kyle, this week I just want to hype up the concept of cooked fruit in a skillet. Making a dessert in a skillet and like a cast iron thing, you get all those crispy edges. It's a treat. Not really bringing new information to the table here, but it's just something that is on my mind. And I wanted to bring it to the missive of our audience, you know?
Perfect. You know, I've not actually cooked fruit in a skillet before, although I think that's probably a good thing you could mix into a stir fryer or something, which I've been cooking a lot of lately.
Yeah.
I do love a nice cooked fruit, although this does sort of veer a little ominously towards the pineapple on pizza thing, which is very notorious between
this was
you and me.
a dessert, so like, you know,
that's fair.
There you're not really getting, but also pineapple on pizza. What is this? 2008? Do you want to talk about how bacon is epic? Like, you know,
that is so fucking unfair. KT is with us. Fuck you. KT is with us, and that means we're doing a Dirk Gillabel episode. I don't know, KT. How do you feel about pineapple on pizza? What's your stance? Are you down with the pineapple on pizza bullshit conversation? Is a taco a sandwich or whatever?
I think people get invested in these conversations to a degree that I would quantify as healthy.
Yes.
And it's a great way to spend an evening.
I think
everything should be discourse, okay? Everything has
absolutely.
to be divisive. You have to have hard opinions on every single thing. Are you Xbox? Are you PlayStation? Are you into sports or video games, etc.?
Yes.
There are other
You can't
ones.
have both. You just can't have both. Is the fact of the matter. And I do think for us, the pineapple on pizza thing is like years ago. I apparently had a bit of a debaucherous evening in which I was supposedly eating pineapple pizza, which is something I've professed not liking in the past, and I don't remember doing it. And Niall says, yes, you did, and I say, no, I don't. That was more the debate than, you know, the actual merits of it. At least I think we've grown up beyond the actual debate of the merits of pineapple on pizza. But regardless, we do it all in a very healthy way, as you say,
Yeah.
KT. I think we handle it very
soul.
healthily. Speaking of good for the soul, KT, Niall. By the way, I should just say, KT is a friend of the show who was on last time talking about the Cosmick Traveller, and that's Cosmic with a CK. Do both of you remember some stuff about our friend Dirk Gillabel?
Okay, I'm going to be honest. There was singing bowls.
Yes.
And some albums, I believe, similar to what they
Yes.
used to sell at Kmart. And I've blanked out, and something happened, and then somehow we got to like some gnomes or spirits or something within a tree.
Yes.
And I don't really know how we got from A to B, if I'm being honest.
Yes. Niall, what's your recollection?
Well, I remember those things. I also do remember some form of, like, I think a special kind of tarot, which is, you know, I know there are quite a few kinds, but it seemed like it was. I remember they narrowed it down to like 32 cards from 144 or something. Like there was some sort of they had totally like fucked with the tarot deck somehow.
Yeah, I think if I'm remembering, it was something to do with omitting the lesser arcana and just having a deck of major arcana, I think is what it is. I don't know why they did that, but we had the discussion of the people on the web forums who were like, this is a beautiful deck, but I would love it if it was complete.
Yeah. We were venturing at the guess that it was some sort of cost-saving measure.
Yeah, maybe. So that's all good to remember and all accurate. And I do think, there's other stuff with this guy. So we learned, it's episode 469 for anybody who missed it. We learned about the so-called Cosmick Traveller, Dirk Gillabel. We learned about, like KT mentioned, his beautiful singing bowls. Like Niall mentioned, his tarot decks. His ability to recall his past lives. It's sort of an Uncle Boone me situation. It's like... and he has these investigations into aliens on Earth. This thing where he has a transference of his astral body into a flying saucer, and that's the part that stuck with me the most, is because the way it gets recounted by him, it sounds like his astral body popped into a flying saucer. The aliens looked up at him, paid him 0 mind, and then he popped out of their flying saucer again. It was just a completely non-event.
It's fine,
but. It's fine. Exactly. The aliens are like, whatever. I got other shit going on, I think was the thing that we all said in the last episode.
They expect to see some weird shit when they come to Earth. This was kind of the astral body form of like the chronovisor. You could only like look and not really interact with anything.
That might be the case. We honestly don't know, because, in fact, I'm here this week. I have stories from him. And what I'm calling the travels of Dirk Gillabel. But I also decided I think this time it would be good to shed some light on a concept that is applicable throughout contemporary New Age stuff.
Okay.
But I'm going to do another quick little bit of catch-up here. Gilla-Bell is a shaman. He claims to be a shaman, and he claims to have trained under a master shaman named Joska Seuss, this European shaman who died in, I want to say, 2008, and passed on all these teachings and sold Dirk Gillabel his incredible singing bowl. So it's through this guy, Seuss, that Gilla-Bell is able to gain his status as a, I guess, true blue shaman, but it's that status that allows Gilla-Bell the affordance to contact etheric beings. We sort of got into this, but there's this whole thing in shaman culture, as Gilla-Bell describes it, where if you perfect your consciousness and you maintain like spiritual awareness to a particular degree, then you can eventually come into contact with beings that are on higher planes of existence. That's the basic idea. So what was weird is that Joska Seuss was known for painting images of these etheric light beings that operated on a higher level than us.
Sure.
And this was apparently something that was controversial within the shaman community. I don't really know why, other than it's apparently a well-guarded secret, and he's sort of, I don't know if whistleblower is the right term, but he's sort of laying it out there for the non-etheric contact folks. So apparently that's a problem in the shaman community.
There's something kind of funny about the concept of a guy like taking the super secret thing that you have to like unlock level 50 shaman to gain access to, and being like, I'm gonna just like depict that on paintings, and so everyone can see the secret locked thing that they don't get to see otherwise. Like, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I get why people who are really into that sort of thing might take issue with it.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I don't. The only time I've read anything about this being controversial is from Gilla-Bell and his wife, where they're basically telling the story of Joska Seuss, who isn't around to tell his story anymore. But I haven't seen other shamans online being like, it is so fucked up that this guy did this. So it's maybe that's out there, but I haven't found it. So I'm going to save some of the finer details for an official Yosuke Seuss episode at some point, but I think it's important to point out that his influence on Gilla-Bell is very vital. The teachings that Gilla-Bell took from him were not just this sort of spiritual enlightenment, but he does come away with this appreciation for a particular kind of art and a passion for things like consciousness-raising sounds, which is, like you said, KT, the music that we talked about in the last one, which is for sale. By the way, you can get MP3s of this Lightworks music that they develop it's basically just new age music.
Consciousness can be best raised by 128K MP3,
Yes,
you don't
exactly.
need the full spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets that from Yosuke Seuss as well, because he talks often about Yosuke Seuss being a very musical person, that he would like walk around singing and humming, which, to me, that's less a...
That's insane. Only a powerful shaman would do that.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is it's like, that's sort of like what my grandpa did. Like, he would just kind of walk around humming and singing to himself. So I think it's more of an old
that
person.
Going grandpa mode. Like,
yeah, it's... Exactly. So, and he was an old man, this Yosuke Seuss guy. He lived to a ripe old age of... He looked like he had a ripe old age in the photos I saw of him. That's all I can really... I don't know his actual age off the top of my head. But... So he gets all this. Gilla-Bell gets all this from this Yosuke Seuss guy, and he even goes through a shamanization ritual, which I think we described as almost being like a shaman version of like a baptism almost. So this guy, Yosuke Seuss, is important for understanding Gilla-Bell. With all this in mind, though, we talked about what was meant exactly by Cosmick Traveller, which is the namesake of Gilla-Bell's WordPress blog. So if you think about cosmic, that's sort of the physical outer universe beyond our planet, right? But Gilla-Bell adds the magical K to the end of the word, which I think we can safely infer means something beyond the physical universe. And I think that's the ether and the etheric body.
Okay.
So Niall and I have talked about this for a long time because of this podcast about astral projection and sort of this spirit body that is not like it's connected to your physical body, but it's somewhere beyond you. Are you familiar, KT, with astral, travel and things like that? Have you ever done that?
Have I done that? No, I get scared.
That's understand. I mean, it's fucking scary. The way they describe these things, and he has stories that I'm going to get to in this episode that I'm like, that sounds like terror. But it can be a very positive experience too, to be fair.
It's only positive if you don't meet up with Shumagorath. Like, if you meet up with Shumagorath, you're going to have a bad time.
It's going to be a bad time.
And it's not going to go well for you.
That's true. So let's talk about the etheric body. So the etheric body, this is very key, I think, to understanding the stories that Gilla-Bell tells. You can, like I said, you can liken it to the astral body. They're basically the same thing. The simplest terms, you can describe it as an invisible double of your physical human body. But this body, it lies beyond the sensational realm of perception and physicality. It sort of exists in another metaphysical set of worlds. And these worlds are multidimensional. Now, this is one of the things that trips me up whenever people talk about astral bodies, astral projection, the ether. You can sort of think of this all as the concept of the fourth dimension and beyond in physics. Like it's pretty much parallel to that. Where like, I don't know how many dimensions there's theorized to be now. It's a bunch, right? Like, but beyond the 3-dimensional world that we're in right now, I think we do know that there's like a 4th dimension and a 5th dimension. I think there's supposed to be like 11 dimensions that we somehow know about, right? These The New Age stuff, though, they kind of just deeply infuse a spiritual element. So it's spiritual dimensionality without science or mathematics. So they just kind of say, you know, we love this idea, but what if you were like a ghost that had sort of like a religious connection to multiple planes of existence? It trips me up because it sounds like they say metaphysical, but they are sort of just doing physics again, but with spiritual stuff. Does that all make sense, or am I sounding out of my mind right now?
No, sure. They love to. I mean, also these people love to connect those things to their beliefs. Like I hear a lot of like woo people be like, it's quantum mechanics, and like
right. Which
they use quantum the way comics did in like the 90s.
Exactly.
It was like that was the buzzword you put in front of something so that it's Doctor Who reversing the polarity. Like it's gobbledygook.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, my understanding is theoretical physics, talking about like 11 dimensions or whatever. Like most of that in your practical life doesn't mean anything to you, but then like in this spiritual belief, it's like, but actually you can touch all of it, and that's like that's the fantasy.
Yeah, 100%. That's. I think you both nailed it. It's it's just weird. It's repackaged Christianity and physics, and it sounds really good. You know, like just like you said, like using quantum. It sounds important. So, would you believe it? Much of the contemporary New Age discussion surrounding the etheric and astral planes, that all stems from Helena Blavatsky and the Theosophists. Blavatsky being a woman who has just haunted this fucking podcast for approximately a decade. We really do have to talk about Blavatsky at some point. She pops up in basically all of this. She is inescapable when you're in the New Age realm. But this is the thing that I thought was really interesting about all this. So Aether, Aether. They call it Ether in like for etheric, but it comes from this idea of aether with an A, and this was a sort of proposed element, like this was the fifth element, right? And it was a proposition by ancient Greek philosophers to explain how light moves through space, which was a really difficult problem for science for a really long time. The idea being that, like, you need some sort of thing that light can travel on. Like, we know that the waves of water, they have, waves can travel through water, or, like, things can travel through air as a wave. How does light travel? This was a really weird question for a while. And so the Greek philosophers, I'm not going to drag you through ancient philosophy or anything like that, but this original concept was proposing this thing called ether, that instead of light traveling through an absolute void in space, there was this element called ether that it could travel through it. It had to have like a conduit through which it can travel. So this original attempt at doing physics for light waves is, I think, one of the key reasons why light is so important to New Agers. Because, they talk about light and sound. Sound can travel through air. We know that. The debate on this idea of luminiferous ether was persistent up until, like, I want to say late 19th century. So we weren't sure how that worked for a very long time. If you want to know about the science of the ether stuff, you can just look up, there's this thing called the Michelson-Morley experiment in 1887 that basically proves that ether does not exist. And it's sort of the nail in the coffin for the ether theory of light travel. But this, to me, sort of felt like the theosophical tradition, which is founded, it sort of comes into being slightly before, I want to say, this experiment on ether. So this idea of the theosophical tradition of etheric and astral bodies, it feels a little bit like a holdover of ideas right before science had a proper crack at definitively disproving its existence, and it just sort of diverges from science. Mm-hmm. And frankly, the ether that a lot of the New Agers talk about. It's pretty much divorced from the historical concept. So that's a big diversion, but I thought it was cool. But the etheric body, that is what is important for our Cosmick Traveller. So in this cosmology that Gilla-Bell inherits from Zeus, consciousness is connected to these higher etheric planes, which he calls levels. So light in their cosmology, the thing, the light around us, this apparently comes from the sixth planar level of etheric consciousness. It just does. I don't really know why, but it does. Okay, and then the seventh level, which is the highest level, is where sound comes from. So that's why sound is of the utmost importance, is because it is on the level that encompasses everything below it.
All sound comes from the seventh level?
That's what it sounded like. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
understand. Yeah, go ahead.
I could never get into Dungeons and Dragons.
That's okay. It is very D&D. And it is very much like the hells, to be honest. The different consciousness levels are kind of like the hells of D&D is what it sort of feels like, actually. But it's such a weird idea that, like, it's another one of those things where it's like, okay, you are trying to develop this something that feels like a formula or a framework for how reality works. Where does this come from? Like, where does this statement that light comes from the sixth plane and sound come from the seventh plane? I don't know where that comes from. I didn't find anything saying, we know this to be true because of this. It's just the reason that they quote unquote know this is because the light sound beings, the etheric beings that get mentioned in all of this stuff between Gilla-Bell and Zeus, they're light sound. They exist on the sixth and seventh planes of reality, of metaphysical reality, I should say, because these planes are metaphysical, right? So basically the reason we know that this is how things work is because we were able to elevate our consciousness, come into contact with those beings, and then those beings told us, yeah, that's how it works.
It's so. I think you can look at it as on the sixth day God said let there be light.
Yeah.
Actually that was on the first day, but like it's I think that there's. I was trying to figure out how to match this onto like they're taking it from creationism, because this is all like everything. The more you try to make the like woo woo like light work type stuff make sense, the more it just comes off like Christianity.
Yes,
with a new coat of paint.
Yes.
But like there's some the joke was gonna be that was then on the seventh day it's sound because God relaxed by bumping some Jimmy Buffett, and that's really relaxing.
Nice.
That's the seventh day.
Rest in peace. That's good. I mean, it really is though repackaged Christianity, which is sort of something that I learned about theosophy when I was reading about all this, is that members of people who would consider themselves theosophists, I guess is the term, right? They would often insist that they were not a religion. And so you could be a Christian theosophist, you could be a Jewish theosophist, you could be a Buddhist theosophist, but it certainly looks like a religion when you read about it. And it's a lot of repackaged stuff from other religions as well. And so I think there is just a tendency when you feel like your beliefs drive you towards some sort of understanding of a cosmology, you just kind of do what you know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You understand the Judeo-Christian framework, and so it's easy to apply that to other places.
Yeah, that's I think kind of how this happens. So, but like I said, the etheric light beings, they exist on these sixth and seventh planes where light and sound come from, And the teachings of Seuss maintain that, quote, the light sound beings are the creators of the universe. They create and maintain whole galaxies, star systems, planets, everything that exists from the large to the small. It's sort of an interesting thing to me because they specifically name physical objects in reality. They don't say that they create reality itself. There is something on top of all of the things they describe there, which is reality as reality. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like, so then that leads me to wonder, okay, is there some sort of creator? Is there a first cause for these people? You know? Mm-hmm. I don't know how that works. Or are they conceiving of the light beings as the creators of reality itself? That's sort of what comes before the creation of galaxies, star systems, planets. Like that's what I always wonder. So who knows? This is what they say. This is how I've interpreted their writings. If you look up Joska Seuss, you find a lot of abstract paintings of geometric forms and concentric circles and stuff that kind of looks like stars and musical notes. And these are his depictions of the etheric light beings. They don't look humanoid or anything. They don't really have form. So that's what he's talking about when he's talking about light beings. So hope that clears up the etheric body for everyone.
Oh yeah, I'm with it. Totally.
Cool. So now that we've established what etheric beings are, how this all works, I'd like to share a couple stories of Dirk Gillabel's experiences during cosmic travel. So you may recall how when Gilla-Bell met the King of Gnomes in our previous episode, he also heard the rumbling of a nearby dragon. And so in that story, he goes to meet with the King of Gnomes, and he's hanging out with the King of Gnomes, and they're doing, like, gnome stuff. And then he hears this, like, deep rumbling, and he asks the King of Gnomes, like, what the fuck is that? And the King of Gnomes is like, don't worry about it. It is just a dragon. Let's keep on doing gnome shit. So I did find another story where he thinks he may have encountered an actual dragon. So this is a story called A Dragon on Overlook Mountain. So here's what he says. And a lot of this is in his own words. And feel free to jump in anytime either of you have a thought. Feel free to interrupt me. So here's what he says. I came to Woodstock, New York in 1993. The following year, I was drumming my shamanic drum just to go into a deep state of relaxation and meditation. After a while, I started to see with my inner eye a figure approaching me from the other side of the valley. He was a native Indian shaman who was wearing a large dragon costume. The costume consisted of a dragon head placed on his own head, from which a dragon coat extended over the sides and back of his body. From the head of the dragon flowed a ragged edge, as certain reptilians have, all the way down to and including the long tail. So, if you're not into D&D, this might not be the most exciting character to meet. And it's not a proper dragon. Also, I was trying to point that out.
See, you said this was in 1994, so I was quickly trying to see. That was the year, and you said it was in Woodstock, right?
Yes.
Woodstock 94 is the year that it rained so bad that it was like a mud bath, and everyone like lost their minds. So I was trying to figure out if I could somehow tie this to Woodstock 94.
You think maybe the beating of a dragon's wings perhaps knocked loose the clouds containing all the rain that made the mudslide? That's kind of
I was thinking more he was confusing, like the drums, like, you know, were somehow in tune with like Incubus or some shit, you know?
Sure. So that there is some acoustical harmoniousness that maybe caused something to happen. Or, you know, people talk about the bad acid at Woodstock. Maybe he took the good acid.
Yeah.
Kind of
you get to see dragons
concept that he's just tripping, but
is a dragon, or is that like a different definition than what we understand a dragon?
Well, I think for let me answer on behalf of Dirk Gillabel. I'm in this man's head, by the way.
He's in his walls.
Basically, I think that for him, Because if you remember, when he travels beyond the earthly realm and into these other planes of existence, that's where the different sort of domains of consciousness are where you can meet other kinds of beings. I don't remember what planar level, but I do believe when he had Congress with the King of Gnomes, it was on another etheric plane. Like, he was able to elevate his consciousness. He was able to just, meditate until he saw gnomes.
He doesn't even need DMT. Like, it's...
No. So I think the idea here is just that these entities are things beyond our plane of existence that you can come into contact with if you do the work on your own consciousness. So he does kind of get into the dragon aspect of it a little bit more here, but I don't think it's necessarily, like, it is a dragon in the way we envision it, but it's also a dragon from another plane of reality somehow. So I
okay, thank you.
Yes, of course. I like I said, I'm in this guy's brain. If anything confusing like that comes up, please stop me, because I think I'll be able to explain it. I hope. So he goes on to say about this shaman in a dragon coat. He says, I felt that he was a local guardian of the place at the other side of the valley, and he was curious about who was drumming in the shamanic way. I never thought much about... Do you think that happens accidentally sometimes? Just, you start drumming in the shamanic way, and you just start summoning, like, etheric beings to you? Like, surely that has to happen to, like, actual, like, drummers in bands. That's my... I mean, maybe I don't know what the shamanic method of drumming is, but this is...
I think that's responsible for the Phil Collins drum fill. I think that's. I think someone summoning some fucking etheric beings is what's responsible for Roto Thomas becoming a thing in the 80s.
Okay.
I was gonna say maybe Spinal Tap did that, and that's why their drummers keep dying.
That's actually a really good theory.
That's good. I like that. I was going to say this actually could maybe tie into our recent Billy Corgan episode, which, maybe Billy Corgan's shape-shifting encounter, which, Katie, I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's a whole thing. Billy Corgan saw a shapeshifter. It may have been a demon. But he maybe there's I know he's not a drummer, right, but maybe close proximity and an attunement for the supernatural could have opened him up to witnessing an etheric being shape-shifting.
I think he just deserves it.
No, I think I 100 look, I actually didn't know much about Billy Corgan after doing that episode, and now completely agree, definitely deserves it. So Gilla-Bell goes on and says, I never thought much about it, although I found it strange that he had that dragon costume, because I have never read about a shaman anywhere in the world who was initiated in the dragon energies or are associated with the dragon entities. So again, these are probably etheric creatures on another plane. Dragons are entities that are usually associated with the high, subtle energy currents in and around the Earth and in the cosmos. Whatever. That's it's a little bit of a meaningless sentence, I think, but
no, Kyle, it's all about the energy currents around the cosmos.
I guess
you gotta keep track of those shits so that you can surf them in your etheric form.
True. So he goes on and says that the area from which the dragon shaman came is called Overlook Mountain. More specifically, the southern lower slope. A couple of years later, I met a man who was living in this area and for a couple of years had contact with strange entities who were hanging out in the area at that time. This is a total aside, but he has a link here where he's like, if you want to read about my contact with strange entities in this area, go here. And then it's just a series of stories he's compiled of people that he knew in the area telling him about strange encounters. And there was one really weird one that I couldn't make any sense of, where a guy supposedly woke up in the middle of the night and thought he heard children on the neighbor's roof, and then a being comes to him and plants in his mind the suggestion of a $35 plastic toy, is I think what it says. I have no information beyond that, by the way. That's just what's in the story. That's what was imparted to Dirk Gillabel by his friend in the area where this happened. So
I love the concept of this like self-referential website where in the middle of one story that's like absolutely buck wild, it just like goes into an aside with a hyperlink to another one, so that you can just like it's like the like I don't know, the more fucked up version of like just going down a Wikipedia hole, you know? Like,
yes.
you never know where you're going to end up. You never know what story you're going to get. It's just you're going to end up like learning all about some weird battle from like World War II and also like a hyperpop album, you know, like it's going to happen.
Which, you know, for a future episode, by the way, Dirk Gillabel does have past lives that he recalls from being a World War II veteran. So, yeah, 100%. The website is labyrinthine, and then you also start to realize that there's like 3 or 4 websites that they all seem to, I think, have ownership of between him and his wife. So it gets very rabbit hole-y very quick. So he goes on and says, several years later, I learned that this area has many megalithic monuments, mainly stacked stone heaps called cairns, and long winding stone walls. Nobody knows where they came from. Because in the United States, ancient megaliths do not officially exist, despite their numerous presence. They are ascribed to the early settlers or to the native Indians. In reality, they are connected to a much earlier civilization on this continent. The presence of the stone structures on Overlook Mountain is important because megaliths were always built on important energy places. The winding stone walls were built to transfer energy from one place to another. To be clear, Overlook Mountain in this, these are all real things. The cairns, they're like the circular stacks of stones, and those are real. And there is some debate about who put them there and when exactly. It does typically get attributed to Native American tribes in the area. We'll get a little bit more into that in a moment, but him saying that they're megaliths that don't officially exist is, I think, a little inaccurate.
But those also are like really, there are whole rabbit holes of conspiracy theory about the mound builders in America and stuff. I've almost taken a dive in that hole before, and it's extensive and very confusing.
Yes, this is very much touching on that, and it's drawing from real sources, but it was hosted on. He links to an article. He's like, if you want to read more about these structures, go to this fantastic website. And it was one of those things where it took you to a conspiracy theorist author's website, and it was a guy I recognized. I'm not going to pull the name right now. I recognized the guy because he did multiple books that were sort of aping off of Chariots of the Gods. Like, they had similar titles, and presumably similar subject matter. But then it was just copy-pasted text from what I think was a very legitimate paper on the subject of these structures, which, again, we'll get to that. But, so it was just one of those things where a legitimate thing was pulled in to give a weird conspiracy person's section on their website more legitimacy. Anyways, I digress. And so he goes on. And he says, one evening just after dusk, from our house looking over the valley towards Overlook Mountain, I saw a row of large, brilliant colored lights hanging above the treetops. There were about 4 or 5 of them. Each one had a different color: white, orange, green, blue, red, which were flashing on and off in succession very rapidly. It was clear that they were attached to some vehicle hovering above the treetops, but I could only see the lights because it was already dark. I saw it for about 20 seconds, and they just turned off. My opinion, a flying saucer. About 2 weeks later, we bumped into our neighbor and told him our story. He responded by telling us that he had seen the exact same thing moving slowly over and just above our house a couple days before. It shook him up. Recently, I have learned that an archaeological group took interest in the stone megalith site on Overlook Mountain. One of their members had mapped the cairns and tried to find a star constellation that would correspond with the placement of the cairns, as is often the case with other megaliths around the world. He found that they corresponded with the constellation of Draco, the dragon. On Overlook Mountain, there is a stone wall that ends in a large rock that has the shape of a head, usually called a snake's head, but I think it is actually the dragon's head. This winter, also after dark, I saw brilliant white flashes high up on the mountain, almost near the top, a place where there are houses, only rough, steep... There are no houses, I think is what he meant to say. Only rough, steep cliffs. It was also freezing cold, so I don't think anyone would go up there, and the lights were extremely bright. Every flash was at a different spot, and the time between flashes was only a couple of seconds. A mysterious place indeed. So, first of all, Gilla-Bell. The UFO story seems... I get it happened in the same place. It seems a little unrelated to the Cairns corresponding with the snake constellation, which, to be clear, he says Draco is the dragon constellation. It is the serpent constellation. It's a snake, which you could definitely say is sort of... It's in the same sort of area as dragons. But if we're going to be mythology and history accurate, it is the snake, which is a different thing. It's a little different. I agree. KT, I know you don't like D&D stuff, but like I think we can agree. Dragons different from snakes. I agree. I think they're a little cuter than dragons too, and they're real, so that helps too. I get okay. That is a very good point. It is weird to me that this guy is just like, also there's a UFO there, when I thought he's just pointing out that weird things happen in this area. But maybe the UFO could have some. I guess he's just trying to say, he doesn't explicitly say this, but there tends to be alien shit happening in weird places, weird energetic places on the planet, I think is what is meant to be implied by bringing that into the story.
Absolutely. All of this makes sense. I have to stop and catch my breath because, like, our first episode on this was, like, Dirk Gillabel, the singing bowls, the sounds, and the gnomes, and now it's like, okay, we gotta get into the theory. We're bumping into all sorts of other conspiracy things, and I get that that's how it all works, but oh my god, it's so much now.
I want you to imagine that feeling for most of the days of your week for 10 years.
I know. Well, Helena Blavatsky, a star, might as well be the new dead dog on this show.
Yeah, we really, you know, there probably might be like Kyle and I have toyed with doing a month before. We've kind of loosely done a month of things. You did a kind of a disclosure month type thing. You could do a Theosophy Blavatsky month. Like, yeah. We haven't fully covered like Nazi occultism, which she got like heavily roped into.
Which is all God, I can't go off on this tangent. I think the Nazi occultism aspect comes from the whole concept of the root races, which is a thing in Theosophy. So I know I'm not helping your headache here, KT, so I apologize. But like, Helena Blavatsky is interesting, but also there's some weird stuff that I think does ultimately allow for, you know, fucked up Nazi stuff to commingle with these spiritual beliefs. It's all very harmonious ultimately, and so it's definitely worth talking about because, like I said, I think we were probably in the actual double digits when we first saw Blavatsky and Theosophy start popping up in these stories. So it's got to happen sooner rather than later. That and JFK. They're JFK. I mean, there's so many
big figures.
We're so
Helena Blavatsky.
Yes, we're very much haunted by those two. I'm afraid it's just our reality.
You got to do an episode about how they knew each other.
Could they have crossed paths?
The true test of Archive of Our Own is there JFK x Helena Blavatsky fictions.
Oh my god. Well, now that it's been, like so many things, now that it's been spoken of, it will come into existence. I completely understand needing to like catch your breath with this stuff because it just bounces from thing to thing to thing. It's so It doesn't help that the way that people like this tend to write about these extremely chaotic subjects is also itself very chaotic. So,
Yeah,
if
they
there's
always
any
assume
clarification that needs to be done, I can do it. But
yeah,
sorry, Niall.
they always assume you've read everything they've ever said. It's like you
Yeah.
have a full working knowledge of everything that they usually talk about, because these people exist on like diehard enthusiasts who follow their every word. And
Yeah.
so like they give you no context whatsoever when and like especially with this guy where he's writing the stuff on his website, it seems like he's just writing kind of like whatever stories come to mind that day, he'll put them up, and it's in no like so it's all just tangents. This guy like
Yeah.
there's no
Well,
no one follows a simple structure.
I'm gonna hazard a guess. There's not editors. There's not second drafts. It's just kind of going
Yeah.
which is part of the fun. Continue. Let's do it.
Yes. So I just wanted to bring up a note on this mapping of the star constellations to the cairns at Overlook Mountain. So that the thing that they're borrowing from is this paper written by a guy named Glenn Kreisberg, who was at the time vice president, might still be, but I couldn't find any information on this. He was vice president of the New England Antiquities Research Association, or the NEARA. And their whole purpose is to study these stone structures. They preserve them. They share research. And the guy did put in legitimate work trying to map the stone cairns to the Draco constellation. He sort of specifically picked out the largest cairns and stone objects and then compared them to the brightest stars that would have been... The way constellations work is they're not always going to... Not every star that's supposed to be in the constellation is always going to be available in the night sky. So it's something like Draco's composed of like 9 to 14 stars, depending on the night and the location or whatever. But he talks to an astronomer who confirms like, yes, this constellation would have been visible on this date at the, whatever. So he does put in the work, and it's not so far-fetched to imagine that Native American tribes placed stone structures based on constellations, just given the importance of stars to cultures around the world and throughout history. Like that is just a thing that humans did for various reasons, navigation, or sometimes it had spiritual meaning. It's a thing. So not that crazy of an idea for Dirk Gillabel. The thing here is that it proves a connection between the cosmos, his visions, and this draconic imagery, I guess, that he's come up with. So that's what it means, I guess. So that's him, I guess, meeting a dragon who's really a guy who is a shaman dressed as a dragon, which is also cool, I guess. But probably should have called the story "The Guy Dressed as a Dragon." Mountain.
But that's not nearly as evocative of a title.
No.
No. There's something to be said about leading with like a strong title, True.
That's very true. So, speaking of leading with a strong title, this next series of stories, these are from journal entries that he posted, where he describes visions from a state that he calls he describes as being the threshold in his sleeping state. So this is Akashic Memories Beyond the Threshold. So that's a pretty good title. I kind of like that one.
Sounds like something you'd call your Tumblr blog.
Come on. Don't bring that here. So here's what he says. The following few experiences happened a few times in a short time span when I was in my 20s. Each time I was accessing a very particular state of consciousness when riding a train to work in the mornings. I was always sleepy when riding the train so early in the morning, and I often dozed off, as one does. On some occasions, I would remain conscious while my body was dozing off into a deep slumber. At a certain depth of that slumber, there was a threshold. On the first occasions, I would find myself at that threshold, remembering that I had gone beyond it, had experienced something, but when going back through the threshold, it had wiped my memory of what I had experienced. I read this, and this is something that happens to me constantly, where I'll be laying in bed. I have a really bad thing where I'll be trying to sleep, and I will be very much in a state of falling asleep, and my mind and thoughts and the mental imagery going through it becomes really like not indescribable, but really strange and surreal, and just there's no connecting ideas or things. It's just weird thoughts and images. And then what'll happen is I'll wake up with a start and not fall asleep completely or properly. And I'll remember for the next 30 seconds what was in my mind as I was falling asleep, and then it's just gone. Is this, and I wonder, is this something that either of you have experienced? Is this a normal, like, do people experience this? Or am I unique in a beautiful mind sort of way?
I think I've experienced similar things to that. Like sometimes I'll have just total nonsensical thoughts as I'm in the kind of half asleep state that like where I'm just like talking, like I'm responding to something, and it makes absolutely no sense, and I forget most of them. And then like in the morning, sometimes I'll wake up weird. I'm not sure I could say I've 100 with 100% certainty that I've had exactly what you're talking about, but it doesn't sound that weird to me because I've had similar things, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of them, I like happened to be like falling asleep on the phone with a friend, so I like described it to them right after. But it was like,
ooh,
I just had the like, it was like half asleep, and then saw this like multiple choice question, and it was like, what is my bed? And it had like 4 answers, but none of them were the word real. And so I like, impulsively kicked my bed because it wasn't real.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the exact kind of thing. Well, so the thing that always comes to mind when I hear about something like this is, and I think we talked about this in like the sleep paralysis episode, but there is some sort of like state where you're entering proper sleep, but you're not quite unconscious yet, where this stuff tends to happen. And the story that I always think of is Salvador Dali, and this method where he would hold a stone in his hand and sit by the fire in an armchair and let himself drift off to sleep. And as he would drift off, the stone would fall, it would make a loud bang, and it would wake him, and he would be able to retain some memory of the images he saw, and then supposedly he would then take those images and apply them in his paintings, which is cool. I mean, the guy was a total fucking freak, but parenthetical negative. But he, I do think that's kind of interesting. That's sort of like an interesting method to get some cool images and ideas. So that's what this makes me think of.
I always have a weird thought process when it comes to people like that. Like I get like inspiration come from anywhere, but I always find people who try to like create some sort of method like that where it's like they're accessing. It's always like, so you just couldn't think of an idea? You couldn't think of like what you want to paint?
I get what you're saying.
Okay, but he was
cool,
a surrealist, and their thing was dreams. That's like the whole deal.
I was gonna say, to be fair here, you do have to think like imagine if you were a surrealist and you really desperately wanted to capture that kind of imagery, and you kept forgetting these extremely strange images that pass through your mind when you're about to fall asleep. It does make some sense.
It does. Like this is a thing that is like, this isn't a thing that I firmly believe or anything. It's just like a thought that occasionally ekes in when someone has like a specific process that generates the thing. It's like a weird impulse that I have where I'm like, interesting.
Couldn't just think it up.
I don't think it's bad. Yeah. Like
I just made it up. Some people, not everybody can be, David Lynch going for a meditational fishing for ideas from the lake of consciousness or whatever the hell he was talking about. So, but anyways, to get back to what Dirk Gillabel was talking about, here's what he says. He says, I programmed myself to remember what had happened. He doesn't really elaborate on how he did that. And then maybe he was doing the Dolly method. Who knows? And then I had a couple of occasions where I managed to remember clearly what I had experienced. That was not easy. Often the memory was too vague. Also, there was a difference in reality, and I had to translate it in the nearest reality terms that we know of here on the physical plane. And then I had to remember it when my consciousness was rising up to its normal waking consciousness. This I managed a couple of times, and here are these experiences. I think what he's trying to say there is that because these images were coming to him not from dreams, but from... I think he's saying the Akashic Records, by the way. Mm-hmm. He can't talk about them in lower level consciousness terms, I guess is the idea. Which by lower level consciousness, these people basically always mean what all three of us are doing right now, which is being consciousness right now. Because none of us are, elevated in that same way. I guess that's what he means. So he says, I first have to say something about the nature of the experiences beyond that threshold. Each time I was in a scene, in full clear consciousness, in detail, in color. These were not dreams at all. From what I now understand, I was inside an Akashic record, reliving a memory, probably my own from past lives. Akashic records can be seen as visions, but one can also be in it, reliving it as if one is at the time and place of the happening. When one is experiencing this, one is totally in it. That means there is no awareness that one is actually inside a psychic body in the present and is consulting the Akashic memory. At least that is what happened to me on these occasions and in some other experiences in my life. While I was in the scene, there was no information other than what was experienced. Thus, I have no context into which to put it. Only after I had come out of it and when writing it down. Okay, basically what he's saying is I had to go into these states, which I think were the Akashic Records actually. So I left my body psychically, went to the Akashic Records where I'm not aware that it's happening to my physical body. Then I come back and I write it down before I forget it. And then he's also saying after the fact, he has to interpret it because he doesn't have an earthly idea of what it means. So, the first one, June 8th, 1989. I am and see myself as a kind of gaseous cylindrical form at the edge of the atmosphere of Earth, and I am descending. I am not aware that there is a spaceship that came from Mars and is having technical problems. And it is inside my gaseous form. So he's a big gas cylinder, and there's a Martian UFO that is malfunctioning inside his gas form. When I finished descending, the spaceship had disappeared. Here's my interpretation. This was a very short scene, but when experiencing it, an absolute reality. However, this reality was different from our present-day reality, and I had to translate it into terms that we are familiar with. I cannot explain this any further. It is like I have to use descriptive terms for what I have no words for. When in the scene, it is experienced as normal. When I am at the other side of the threshold, it remembers the experience as something that is alien or different than what we experience nowadays. I interpret this experience as me being in my soul form, coming to Earth from Mars after its cataclysmic destruction. But why was my soul in the form of a gaseous cylinder? That seems too utterly weird. It took me a very long time to get through this one. The soul exists on the astral planes. In the astral world, the soul does not have a definite form. Most deceased people, being in the astral world, assume the shape of their former body on Earth. Sometimes, after having spent some time there, they will adjust their body to form to a more young and beautiful form. But in actuality, one does not have a form in the astral world. One creates a body form out of habit and out of convenience when interacting with other souls. However, a soul can take on any form at once, and this does not have to be a human body. So, okay, but a gaseous cylinder? I have read a lot of accounts of people who have had astral projection or out-of-the-body experiences, and I never came across any other form than the human body in the astral worlds. Then I found an account of a near-death experience of a woman on an internet forum. She went through the familiar tunnel with a light at the end of it, but she saw herself as a gaseous cylinder speeding through the tunnel. Only at the end of the tunnel did she assume a bodily form. So how strange it might be, at least one other person saw themselves like that.
Okay, so he really has no explanation. He just is like, I also found another woman that had an experience where she was a gaseous cylinder too.
You know,
do you think they just had like some like gut issues? Like, was he just was his tummy just a little sick?
It's very possible. I mean, I got a gaseous cylinder going on inside of my guts 24/7. So maybe I really don't know what to make of this one, other than I think he's just saying like maybe you somehow get blasted into a gas cylinder on like in transit to like, because he says that she turns into the gaseous cylinder when she is seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, which implies dying. So maybe he's saying like, oh, maybe you just get obliterated into gas in transit to the afterlife. I don't really know, but that's how I'm reading it, I guess.
I mean, that's part of the process, sure.
But there's a lot of other shit going, a lot of moving parts. You take on liquid, you take on immaterial, metaphysical form, and a gas.
Look, a lot of people eventually start to make themselves look younger and hotter, but he went straight for peak performance, which is gaseous cylinder. That is going to be the most efficient form in the afterlife to get what you need.
That's very true. It's very true. I do kind of love this idea that when you die, you go into the etheric plane and you only form a body not out of necessity but out of habit. Like you just can't leave that behind. You're so used to it. There's something kind of fun about that idea. I kind of like it.
So it's like alien races who reach in your memory for something comforting to like there's a thing where people just assume that there's this like innate shape to the human being that like and it's interesting. Like I don't know if I have that complete conception of my body that I could recreate it in the etheric realm, you know?
It's a very Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was like expecting the story to go like, and I had read that account of the lady being a gaseous cylinder, and I guess that influenced me into becoming one without thinking about it. And that would make sense of like, oh, the way the mind works, but it's just kind of like, nah, somebody else did it too, by the way.
No, this was confirming that basically the function of him finding, because the story of the woman in the internet forum is after the fact. This was him confirming, like, it's weird that I turned into a gaseous cylinder, right? But also, somebody else out there did it, and therefore, it's a thing for some reason. So also, that means all of my astral plane travel is real. And these threshold, these akashic, like, threshold things when I'm sleeping, it's all real, and I confirmed it by finding this other gas cylinder. I think? I don't know.
It definitely feels like he's trying to back up his claim by saying, "Oh, someone else has had this, therefore, because there are two of us, it can't be fake," right. which is just not true. But also, like, that's.
Well, I just think that like he is saying that these can't be dreams. Basically, that's kind of the point, I think, is he's saying it's not possible that these are dreams, which, whatever. I guess it's fine. If he wants to see them as visions or whatever, that's also cool, I guess. Now, I can't remember if I told you both about how he has a past life where he was an Atlantean. Did I talk about that?
I think you might have dropped that randomly in the last episode, but we didn't get too far into it.
Yeah, so
sorry, real quick before we move on to the stuff, I want to know so badly if this man has ever been confronted with, have you seen this man? Because like if this guy's doing all this stuff with dreams and doing all this stuff with like, because like he's basically looking at another person in a dreamlike state having a similar experience to him. How does he deal with the concept that a bunch of people around the world claim to have seen the same man they've never met in their dreams?
Well, it's an interesting question, and I don't know. Do you know the full story of Have you seen this man?
Maybe. I don't know what the full story is, but I know some of it.
Did you say no, KT? I think
I've just seen like the image that everybody else has seen. That it's like, oh, he's been in everybody's dreams, and
can I ruin that for both of you? Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So I actually talked about this on my old bonus show, Internet Experience Deluxe, which is defunct for now. That was an art project. I don't remember the point of it. Anytime you start looking into some weird mimetic like internet thing, it's always just like it's somebody doing an art project or an ARG. This is actually why this is a big part of why I gave up on doing the bonus show about internet stories, because it always came back to one of those two things. But the have you seen this man thing was an internet made, like, crafted art project of some kind where they were trying to, like, get responses from people who claimed to have seen it, even though it was made up whole cloth.
Gotcha.
I think I did hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, and I like the image. It's a good image because it's, weird and evocative, but anyways, I guess that doesn't ruin it, but, like,
I like it more as an art
story.
project than just, like, as a random image, personally.
Yeah,
like,
I think I do too.
Cool
Yeah,
did that.
that's cool.
Yeah. So, Niall, to your point, I think that regardless of whether or not Gilla-Bell was confronted by the "Have you seen this man" image and knew whether or not it was an art project, either way, I think it would be very interesting to hear his thoughts. So if we keep going down these journal entries here, we have one from August 22nd, 1989. Right, I forgot. He had a past life as an Atlantean, by the way. I think also in Egypt. Whatever. So he says, I'm in an underground room. I have a kind of tunnel vision. I'm looking at an object lying on a foot-high stone wall, and this is very clear and sharp. The surrounding environment is blurry. I feel that this underground room is a kind of ancient laboratory. The object I am seeing looks to be made from a totally clear, transparent, hard material. It is about 3 feet long and a couple of inches wide and deep. At the left and the right of the object, inside of it, are 2 small metal spheres. The object can be pulled apart in 2 pieces somewhere in the middle, and be made one piece again by simply putting the 2 halves together. Then one cannot see any dividing line. My interpretation, I feel that this is a memory from a past life in Atlantean times. The Atlanteans had their scientific laboratories underground. What the purpose of the object is, I have no idea. So he talks in multiple different places about an past life where he can recall a laboratory. I think the implication is that he may have been some sort of Atlantean scientist in another life.
So he's one of the ones that fucked up and got them all covered in water.
Well, we don't know that for sure, but this next one is related and a little more sinister, actually. So this one says, no date, 1989. He says, I'm looking at a really high, almost vertical cliff. In front of it is a platform that is rising up. It is a kind of elevator based on some technology. Very simple, though. I only see a horizontal platform with a vertical wall attached to it in the back based on anti-gravity. There are 2 people on the platform. While it is rising up along the cliff, one person kills the other with some kind of small white device that emits some kind of energy. My interpretation, again, I have the feeling that this took place in Atlantean times. It is a mystery to me as to why I would see these scenes. So, he's getting visions from his life when he lived in Atlantis in the past, and he's been through multiple different lives. That's
sure.
And I think the person killing the other person on the platform, Niall, to your point, maybe, they were icing Atlantean scientists who were complicit in attempting to stop whatever horrible Atlantis experiment that brought the place into the ocean.
Yeah.
Maybe he was part of the resistance among the scientists. Let's spin it positively, because one thing is very clear with Dirk Gillabel, he's sort of all about positive energies. Okay.
Sure. Of course.
So those are just random stories that he tells in one of his blog posts.
I got to give him some credit for the fact that in creating or channeling these past life experiences, he hasn't so far put himself in the role of king or chosen one, or like great. So far, there hasn't been him flashing back to his role of great cosmic importance, which is like that's like level 1 mistake people make when they're trying to like sell me on some shit like that,
Yeah. Weren't we just talking about that Egyptologist lady who basically Elena Danaan, who purports to be the reincarnated form of like so many important figures in history, alien and human. So yeah, it's definitely some people do, I think, recognize like, it's important enough that I can tap into my past life in Atlantis. I don't need to be the emperor. So this is the story. This is the grand finale. This is, I think, one of the most important stories for Dirk Gillabel, based on his... I mean, he pretty much says that exactly. Because this is the time that he actually met an etheric light sound being, one of the creators of the universe.
Okay.
Which, again, it must be pointed out, extremely important based on everything that Yoska Seuss has established as being a part of their sort of shaman way. So here's what he says. This is a story called The Lady with the Star. And he says, once in a lifetime, the divine, and that's capital D divine, stretches its hand out to a human being and touches the soul. One would think that such an experience would be exalting, but this is not necessarily true. It depends on the level to which the person's consciousness has been elevated. I had one such experience. At that time, I did not know what to think of it. Only later, the meaning and significance of the divine intervention became clear. When higher entities, who are not limited to forms, want to contact human beings, they often take on a human shape. This is done to facilitate the contact, as we would have difficulty recognizing them or handling contact with them as formless entities. For this reason, certain entities will also create an environment that is familiar to us, making it easier for us to handle the experience. My own experience in this regard should be seen in this context. One afternoon, lying on my bed with my eyes closed and completely relaxed, probably after, partaking in a singing bowl sesh, which we established is a thing that he does to relax himself.
And it's not a euphemism.
No, not at all as far as we can tell.
You can eat popcorn out of it if you want.
Yes, we did establish that is a good double use of the singing bowl, is putting some popcorn in it. So he's relaxed, and he says he's reflecting upon the day. Without any notice, without any transition, I was somewhere else in full consciousness. Being inside a dark space or room, I looked toward an illuminated room where a light being appeared. The entire experience was brief. Again, without transition, I was back in my physical body, on my bed. I did not know what to think. I had never experienced anything like that before. At the time, in my mid-20s, I had not yet read or heard about light beings. It is the only spiritual experience I did not write down immediately, but the memory of it did not fade away like others. I kept thinking about it. Several years later, I felt compelled to write about it in a poetic form. So here is
Kyle,
Gilla-Bell.
is your thing of the last month or two, Ben, I have to have at least one poem per episode?
Niall, the poems are incidental. Okay? I wasn't considering any of that. It just kind of happened that way. I'm not even personally not super interested in poetry. It's never been my art form that I'm super into, but maybe it's calling to me in 2026, I guess. We'll see.
All right.
So here is Dirk Gillabel's poem about the etheric light being. And I'm just going to say this now, and maybe we can just discuss it when I'm done in a little more depth. It didn't read like a poem to me. But I also don't know much about poetry, so I might need some help with that analysis. So here's the poem, which he doesn't give a title, but here it is. Resting on my bed, totally relaxed, my eyelids closed. Suddenly I was in another place, without transitionally, suddenly there. Where, I do not know. A space, a room, walls to the left and right. Vertical reaching to a man's height, then slanting towards each other. In this space I found myself, in the dark, looking towards the next room. That was bathing in light. A wall in the back, in front of it a floor. A distance in front of the wall, a few steps, the length of the entire room, in the same stone as the floor was made, and just a few steps high. A lady appeared, coming from the left of that room. She walked towards the middle of the steps, descending. A lady, completely clothed in light, a wonderful white light garment. Her face I could not see. That strong was the light of a star shining out of her forehead. When she had descended half of the stairs, something in me stirred, moved by the experience. A hardly perceptible movement in myself caused me, alas, to turn back to the physical body in the blink of an eye. Back in this lower world, I reflected on what had happened. The place I cannot identify, no hints, no idea. The place, the tiles, were as real as ever experienced. However, I would not use the word place or building, because I do not have a definition for it based on present knowledge. About time or duration, I cannot say anything either. I have no idea of the state in which I was. I do know I was there, pure and clear being there, above any realm of feelings, above any realms of thoughts, no feelings, no thoughts, calmly and clear during the entire experience, just observing and at the same time not being an observer. I know that the nature of the experience is far above my present state of being. By myself, I would not be able to go there. Therefore, I assume that the transition was brought about, but I have no indications for this. Who is the lady? I do not know, nor by feeling, nor by knowledge, nor by memory. She appeared clear, light, calm, although she came into my direction. I do not know if she came for me. So, again, it didn't feel very poetic to me. It's a little flowery.
It feels slightly purple prosy. Like I look, I'm not a poem expert.
I don't know
a lot about poetry. And you could probably loosely call this free verse if you want to. There is some kind of like repetition, in parts that kind of like creates some sort of flow to it, but largely it's indistinguishable from just an account of like a UFO thing. You know, like it's just an account.
Yeah. Well, and so I'd considered the idea of free verse, right? But now what's provoking in me is where is the line between, poetry and prose? Like what's I don't know the difference maybe.
Well, it doesn't rhyme, so
right, that's what I'm that's exactly what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is like, where's the rhymes? Where's the, like, it's not even a haiku, right? Which I guess a haiku couldn't capture all this, but you could do like a series of haikus if you worked really hard on it. But I sort of expected some sort of limerick or, whatever an iambic pentameter is. But I don't think either of those are present. So, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, look, it's probably a poem and I'm probably wrong, to be fair.
I mean, is it one of those things where it's just like it depends on intent? Like, if you write it and say it's a short story, it's a short story. If you write it and say it's a poem, it's a poem. Or maybe it comes down to how it gets if you if you set it to square up on the center of the page, it's a poem. If you justify left or right, then it's prose.
Yes. Well, Niall, that's funny you should say that because the way this is formatted is. Everything I just read after his initial description of the encounter, when he says it's a poem, then it all gets center justified. So that does follow. But again, I don't know shit about poetry. I could be completely wrong here, and I'm a bit of a Philistine about poetry. I'm gonna admit something. I oftentimes see poems or I'll read a poem, and I realize how unfair this is, but the rhyming scheme stuff and poetry, I'll read a poem and it doesn't matter. It'll piss me off. I'll get like,
what?
I don't know. Poetry like annoys the fuck out of me.
I thought this was gonna be like it just doesn't move me, but no, it pisses
you off.
Well,
okay, I guess doesn't move me is probably a better way to describe it. I have never felt particularly moved by poetry.
Well, I think you consider you should consider that he lied, she believed. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
Actually,
true.
if I'm
That's
being
true.
serious, I would say poetry, broadly speaking, is the art of words. And so, like, sure, this is a poem. Is it a good poem? Who can say?
Yeah, that's impossible to say. I am like totally ignorant of poetry. It is something that is so out of my realm of understanding. So I'm really just showing my ignorance here, but like, you know, I would love for somebody to put poetry in front of me that would move me. But this is not to, you know, hopefully maybe this clearly moves him. That's the point. And that's fine. So to finish up his story, here's what he says about this Lady of Light. He says later, so we also have to remember that this is all taking place in his 20s, which is before he meets Yoska Seuss. So the important takeaway is he had an encounter with an etheric light being before he was officially a shaman, which the shamanism is how you are able to sort of will yourself into contact with these beings.
Oh, that's that. Okay, that changes things a little bit.
Yeah.
He didn't even need the training to get to talk to one of these things. I love the like. There's a way that there's a comedian in Britain that does a lot of kind of things based around poetry. His name's Tim Key, and one of his friends described it he was describing another comedian's act as comedy, but you take the pressure off. I think there's something to that here, where he decided to just describe the like undescribable beings. He, instead of trying to just like actually sit down and give an account of what they actually looked like, he was like, I'm going to take the pressure off this by saying it's poetry so I can be vague and not really describe anything, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. It almost reads to me like when I think of trying to describe something indescribable. You know, like Arrowhead, like drug trip report stuff, where you're trying to talk about what you experienced and you just can't come up with words that capture what you felt in that moment. That's I think, and so having that take the form of poetry, just I guess gives him a little more meaning, because to him there's no greater thing in all of reality than being able to commune with the etheric light beings.
Sure.
So they're the utmost wisdom. They're the apex of knowledge, understanding, and love, and all of that. Because they're basically just God. Basically.
Yeah.
So here's what he says about his experience, which he has poemified. Later I learned about light beings who are composed solely of light. They reside in the spiritual realms above the astral realm of emotions and feelings, and the mental realm of thoughts and concepts. Okay, hold the fuck up. Hang on a fucking second. I read this before, but it's now that I'm speaking this all out loud, I'm realizing I have to figure out what that means at all.
Yeah, because those are separate from the dimensions we've been talking about, going up to 7. What do these?
Yeah, they reside in the spiritual realms above the astral realm, and the astral realm, I believe he's saying, corresponds to emotions and feelings. And then the mental realm of thoughts and concepts, which is also, I think... So it does technically still work, because he's still saying these things are sort of below the spiritual realm where these beings reside. But also he did say that consciousness... He described it almost as this sort of like compound thing that filters down to us, you know? So, I'm going to have to go back into the minds for episode 3.
I have actually heard this concept before.
Okay.
Because the lyricist for the band K.O. Dot is just like an out-and-out occultist. And he talks about his process, and he basically, to him, he describes like imagination is essentially you're pulling something down from the astral realm into your mind, which would be like that mental realm.
Okay. This is Grant Morrison, right? Sort of.
Kind of.
It's magic adjacent, right? Like this is sort of
Yeah.
the idea. So that is a thing. I think that's kind of what he's saying. I'm getting really wrapped up in the logistics because of what was already established by other texts that I'm pulling from the same guy. Because I'm just trying to reconcile spiritual realms above the astral realm, but them also insisting that light beings are a part of the astral realm at the highest levels. So maybe they bleed beyond the highest levels of the astral realm as well, but those are the two that they can dip into. Maybe solved it. That's what it is. That's got to be what it is. I'll do more research. Like I said, I'm going to go into the Gilla-Bell mines and really, really crack this one wide open.
Oh, you're
there
going to
will
be
be more
ringing that
stories.
Gilla-Bell all day.
Absolutely, yes. And, eventually we'll find the dead canary in the Gilla-Bell coal mine that explains what the fuck I just read. Anyways, but what you said, and also, shouts out KO Dot. That's a... Niall, have you listened to KO Dot?
I haven't thought about that band since in quite a while. And I now have to go re-listen to them because I haven't listened to them since college.
Really
So-
good.
They've released so much stuff. It's so good.
I didn't know though that was their conception of these creative ideas. So that's interesting. And it just sounded like Grant Morrison's thing a little bit, but Grant Morrison is more of
collective unconscious of using chaos magic. What do they call them? Where you like make sigils.
To
like,
sort of
commune
manifest
with
ideas.
Yeah, so all
Right.
comics are real and exist in the collective unconscious, basically.
Yeah, that's
'Cause
yes.
The creativity is like a pool that you can access.
Yes,
basically.
it's a similar idea. So he goes on. Oh God. Okay, so he goes on and he says, organic perception happens through the bodily senses, through emotions, and through thoughts. In the state of crystal consciousness, and those are both capital C, one perceives everything as it really is without any distortion. Light beings are not easily contacted. I don't look... The crystal consciousness thing, this is the first story where I've seen it brought up. I'm assuming this is another thing I'll have to research. Light beings are not easily contacted. They usually decide themselves to appear to mortal man when they deem it necessary. I often wondered why it happened and what message it contained. It took me many years to realize that the Lady of the Star showed me that through exercise and discipline, I can reach that crystal state of consciousness by myself. It might take a lifetime, but I have the necessary qualities to follow that path. I learned about the Eastern practice of Dzogchen, in which one tries to attain the clear state of consciousness, in which is inherent in all beings, and which is the nature of our true self. The practice itself sounds easy, but my personal life still has enough stumbling blocks to keep me busy for a while. I think I looked at this. I think the Dzogchen stuff is I think it's like related to yoga in a way. But I didn't really. It's the Eastern mysticism stuff that they incorporate to elevate consciousness. So he goes on and he says, the crystal consciousness thing, you get to perceive the thing itself. The world, everything's clear. You come into contact with everything as it really is. Great, wonderful. That makes sense. But it is also the first time I was hearing of it in this story. And I guess that's sort of the logical conclusion of the idea of an elevated consciousness. So he goes on and he says, in 1989, I went to the Hungarian shaman Joska Sus for a shamanization. We've talked about this at length in the other episode. Telling him of my experience with the Lady with the Star, he explained that it was a spiritual projection. The shape of the walls and the doorway were part of a building of an ancient Mayan civilization, to which I am still closely connected. The Lady is the potential I can reach if I work for it. In one of my past lives, as a Mayan, I had seen this Lady with the Star who, at the time, was called Orajona. Orajona is the Mayan goddess of the planet Venus. When Joska went deeper into the images he was seeing, another bright light appeared behind the image of the Lady with the Star. This bright light was in was shaped in an oval form and represented the ultimate goddess herself. Okay, so I think I know what he's trying to say here. This confirmed the feeling I had for many years that the Lady with the Star, although a being by itself, is also a vehicle for the light of the Divine Mother. Okay, Divine Mother. That does, I guess, clear it up. So he says, the final thing he says is, this experience is one of my most precious memories. In difficult times, it helps me to remind myself that I am not alone in this world, that the divine in its form of the feminine is looking over me. Having had an experience like this is like a light beacon in the dark. So I think the Divine Mother thing, we are going all the way back into the Jungian territory, which we know he's into because he incorporates all that. I mean, I think, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, that is a thing in tarot. Is that, like, they sort of have taken the idea of the Jungian archetypes and then incorporated that into tarot? Or is that just the Persona video games?
I honestly don't know. I'm not a tarot person to speak of. Or a young person.
Or a Persona person. I'm using the extremely limited knowledge I have, where in Persona 5 you are able to, like, the characters that you interact with have like Jungian archetypes attached to them, and it's in the form of tarot. So we talked about this also in another episode. So again, KT, so sorry, because this is going to make your headache way worse. But when we talk about this Jungian stuff, we're talking about the Gaian consciousness.
Yeah.
Which, Niall, if you'll remember, we talked about this in this context where it was related to this weird abstract idea of folklore as psychic warfare and psyops, which is a really wild episode. But I think here, this is the more standard New Agey use, which is the Divine Mother as this personification, a spirit of the earth. And that does also, it does kind of come, I think, from the Jungian archetype of the mother. So the earth itself as a nurturing, compassionate, protective figure, whatever. That's what I think he's saying. So this is like a creator being that he meets, and he's trying to describe the sort of divine, what the divine presence feels like. I think that's what he's getting at, but it does get it feels a little gobbledygook there towards the end, for me at least. I don't quite catch what he means. But that's his last story that I have for this episode. I mean, there is a whole section that I consider just having be the episode for this one, where he has like a giant, you know how when you get like a really huge web page and the little scroll bar turns into a little tiny rectangle because there's so much content on the page? That's half of his pages. He has one page that is like that is about restaurants or diners that don't exist.
Oh my god.
So I almost did that, but that's an upcoming one. I kind of feel like, because we talked
I'm
about,
excited for that.
It's gonna be awesome. I was very excited that I found that. I have like a lesson plan for Dirk Gillabel, where it's like, okay, we need to kind of learn an overview of the guy, what he's about, what his what kind of wares he has, right? And then we have to talk about light beings, how that works, and how they relate to his whole shit. And then we can start talking about, the part of the Dirk Gillabel semester that everybody loves, which is the diners and restaurants that don't actually exist.
Oh my God.
I love that anytime you're like, I found this other section of his website, I cannot fathom what will follow that phrase whenever you mention something else. Like, when we started out with singing bowls and tarot, I was like, okay, I get the world this guy's playing in. Sure. Restaurants that don't exist. fucking stick a fork in me. I'm done. We're good.
We got plenty of upcoming lessons. We got to talk about the diminutive people that lived under the pyramids and stuff.
Sure.
There's just all kinds of things that we have yet to talk about.
Him witnessing an Atlantean Cain and Abel on an elevator.
Yeah, I'm assuming that there is a more in-depth... we could probably talk about the Atlantis aspect in more depth. But that's what I have for now.
I have 2 thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's me bringing up pop culture some more.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
First, this is all an inverted Lovecraft. This is From Beyond, but instead of technology, it's spirituality. And instead of evil creatures, it's nice spirits. And you want them to see you.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're right. So do you think?
Go
shit!
Ahead.
No. I was just gonna say. Well, no, I don't have. Oh shit! No, sorry. I think you nailed it. I think that's a good way to describe it. What's your other idea?
My other thing is just the experience of this episode has been like, I don't know if like there's like a genre movie or like an anime, and like the first one comes out and you're like, that's a story, and you're like, that's cool, and then the next part comes out and you're like, okay, we have to go through the lore. Like, I don't know about all this. And then it gets to the end and it's like, and diners that don't exist. You're like, I gotta catch the next one.
Oh my God.
You're describing John Wick 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is a thing that I talk about a lot with Jules. Because I like all 4 John Wick movies. I think they're very fun. I don't mind it turning into like weird lore where everyone on Earth is an assassin or linked to them. But there is like, if you watch just the first movie, you would never expect everything else that happens in the later episodes of that series. And like, so I'm really curious to know what the I mean, maybe the restaurants that don't exist is the dick biting dogs of Dirk Gillabel. If we're about to enter chapter 3, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. My point of reference for this, by the way, was just like The Hobbit into Fellowship of the Ring, where it's like, oh, there's like a little. Oh, okay, sure. Hold on, let me back up.
Yes, and then every once in a while,
Where's Dirk Gillabel's Silmarillion?
Oh God, I mean,
Kyle's reading it for these episodes.
Eventually, in a way, yes, because I think the Silmarillion, there is an equivalent. That makes a lot of sense to me. The Yoska Seuss, what is effectively a Bible about his shamanic beliefs and practices, that is the Silmarillion for Dirk Gillabel.
Oh my God, it actually exists.
Because like, if you go to his blog or to his wife's website, they always have at least on almost every page there is like a hyperlink back to a thing about Yoska Seuss, and you can download PDFs. Like when we did the first one, I had this lengthy PDF about the singing bowls and their applications and demonstrations of how to use them and stuff, and that's where he had the photo of his wife with the singing bowl. But then there were, I think there's like at least 2 PDFs that you can get from these 2 that are on just Yoska Seuss and his teachings and stuff. So that is, in fact, the Silmarillion. Episode 1 is our Hobbit. This episode is sort of, I guess somewhere in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Eventually we will get to the point where we're doing the Hobbit, but the movies, and that scene where they put the elvish GoPro on the people in the that depends on if you've seen the Hobbit movie. But
I have not.
Do you know what I'm talking
Nope.
about? Oh my God. Oh fuck. Okay. So
I've heard there's something with barrels and a waterfall or
they
some
go
shit.
into a raging river in spoilers for one of the Hobbit movies. Don't remember which. Maybe the second one.
I believe it's the second one.
Because I didn't see the third one. Because after the second one I gave up. But there is a scene where they go into barrels in a raging river, and the camera starts cutting to shots that I genuinely look like they were filmed from a GoPro. And that's not an exaggeration. It is a completely different quality, and you're like first-person perspective, like going through these barrel... Just YouTube it. It's turbulent and stupid, and that's what I'm saying you have to prepare yourself for.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, last thing I'll say about Dirk Gillabel for this go-around. But the guy is still out there as long as he hasn't, died in the last couple months, because all the sites are still up. His wife's site is still up. You can still buy tarot and singing bowls from them, and their sort of weird method of like emailing them about the stuff. But the last official update came in early September of 2025. So September 2025, he makes a blog post on the Cosmick Traveller blogspot website, adding a new article about ancient subterranean people, which of course he connects to things like Egyptian pyramids, reptilian aliens, and the story from our first episode where his friend has psychic contact with humanoid aliens in Belgium. But those will be stories for another episode.
All right.
So, it is really fun. Like, I realize there's this danger of bringing a friend onto the show to read an hour and a half of material on stuff like this because it is so headache-inducing. And for that, I apologize, but also I do have this very sick thing where I'm like, I can't wait to just make somebody else have to... Because I follow what this guy's saying for the most part. Like, I can follow what he's saying, and that, I think, is bad for me.
No, like, I get it for the most part. It's just too much.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's... I was telling Niall before we started recording that, like, I'm doing all these things, and on top of doing all these things in my life, I'm also reading this shit. And I think what did I say? I said I think I live my life like I'm constantly trying to give myself brain damage. Like, it's just an overload of information that actually like makes me feel physically ill sometimes, just trying to compress all of it down into an episode of a podcast. So this is one of those where it's just, there's so much to it and it's so all over the place. It's a semi-painful experience and I love it. So
Sure.
Anyways,
Amazing.
Are we ready for a big question?
Oh yeah.
Perfect. So we talked about how he met a dragon. He previously met a gnome. We had that really good conversation in the previous episode about, something like $50,000 or a night with the gnome.
The king of the gnomes.
King of the Gnomes. In this one, I would like to know, what mythological monster would you be most excited to encounter in the etheric plane? And again, this is just so counter to the... I feel bad. I don't mean to drag you into the sort of Dungeons and Dragons bullshit, KT, but it is kind of more of that at the end of the day.
Look, you don't have to go full D&D. I'm gonna go ahead and just say I want to meet fucking Godzilla. Like, I think being confronted with Godzilla would really work really well. Like, I specifically, Godzilla 2000 would be my preferred version, just because I think if I were confronted with the actual like Shin, I might just like shit myself. Sure. So I want something with like a little more, still awe-inspiring, but less totally hopeless feeling than Shin.
Okay. Now, I love that for you, and I guess I should have anticipated that. I do wonder what your interactions with Godzilla would be like. Like, would you ask Godzilla questions? Would you? Because for me, and I really want to meet. I was thinking on a little bit of different lines. You could definitely make the argument that Godzilla is a mythological creature at this point. Mm-hmm. I was gonna say the Sphinx because I want to hear those damn riddles.
Sure.
I just want. I kind of keeping in the spirit of my D&D thing, I kind of want to be just, I want to experience the Sphinx's riddle. I want to say, I actually know what, walks on 4 legs at morning and 2 in the afternoon and 3 in the evening. I want to know that, and I want to see the look on the Sphinx's face when I'm like, it's people. Because you're an infant, and you're crawling on 4, and then you're on 2 when you're in the prime of your life, and then when you're old, you've got a cane, and that's your 3rd leg. So, kind of just want to blow the Sphinx's mind with that one, basically. Plus, maybe the Sphinx is cute. That might be the case. I don't
That's
know.
always a bonus.
So that was my stupid fucking answer. KT, what
Okay.
what have you got?
I feel like this is fraught, but it is the first thing that came to mind, and so I think that makes it the most true. But I think I would want to meet a harpy. Partially because based on this description of the dragon, that means a harpy would just be like a person wearing like Amazon cosplay wings on her back.
I guess that's true. That is true. But harpies are cool.
Yeah, harpies are cool.
yeah.
We could hang out.
I would definitely hang out with a harpy. Sorry, Niall, what were you going to say?
No, I was thinking, have you ever seen, there are people that there's like various tiny Japanese women who do like fully realized Godzilla cosplays. And I kind of forgot that the dragon thing was putting someone basically in like a coat. And so like I immediately was like, oh, instead of being confronted with Godzilla, I would be confronted with like fucking like
Godzilla cosplay. I mean, I don't.
What if it was
still
just
pretty
like
cool.
the guy who played Godzilla in the original movie in his rubber suit?
Yeah.
That would be kind of sick, though.
Yeah, like that'd still be good.
Man, I wish I remembered his name off the top of my head. That would have been fun.
This is like Akashic Access stuff. All recorded moments and ideas and everything's in there. So realistically, tapping into these etheric realms, you could meet that exact guy in the exact, just literally just pluck the moment when he was on film and go there. But
especially early on, he almost died in that thing multiple times.
Yeah.
So he probably was close to the veil pretty regularly.
Oh shit! Yeah, I guess that's true. Could have been. He was just this close to turning to a gaseous cylinder. So
yeah.
Well, cool. I love this. I do. Meeting a cosplayer, you really just have to go to a convention. I do that shit all the time. So I would kind of hope it would be the actual Sphinx for me. But I get what you're both saying. Cool. Well, any other final thoughts on Dirk Gillabel? Because I have to hold myself back from saying anything more about this guy. I know too much at this point.
I don't know. Still, look, jury's still out. Eventually, I'll be able to answer the question: would you invite him to the blunt circle? I think still trying to figure out if he can join, if he can hang, it's a chill hang. So far, it's leaning to no, but
okay.
we'll see.
I have a message to Dirk.
I'll pass it on for you.
Yeah. So maybe check out the Beat Writers. Or like go a little earlier than that, like the Modernists.
Okay.
And kind of what they were dealing with and how they approach things differently than like the Romanticists, and just kind of like, also like write a couple sonnets. That might be your thing with like the way you explore the world. Just some thoughts.
This is really good poetry advice, and I feel so bad for saying what I said about poetry, and I'm telling you, I don't know fucking shit. I most of the poetry I've read is like the stuff that they made you read in school, and I can't even begin to tell you who that was. But I'm sure that although we do have a poet who also is sort of a haunting figure of this podcast of the last couple of years, James Jesus Angleton, the spook poet, who was friends with T.S. Eliot, I believe. Mm-hmm. So poetry's coming back in a big way this year, I think. This might be the year for poetry for me. So
yeah, and look, I'm gonna talk all about the haunting of Pablo Neruda, so it'll be good.
Perfect. Well, Niall, you want to do some business and we can wrap this thing up?
Sure. So I think we're down. I like that our business is getting shorter the longer we go on. That's nice.
Because the truth of the matter, I mean, is like, who cares?
Social media is dying. Yeah. It Gets Weird. It's on all your favorite podcatchers. Look up It Gets Weird wherever you find podcasts, and we're going to be there. Share with your friends.
Yes. Yes. Email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. We might read your email out on the show. Just hit us up. Let us know how we should address you. And that'll be great. Actually, just go ahead and promote here before we launch into all our other bullshit. So, yes, KT, we've been internet friends for a while now. You make music. Go ahead and give the spiel. What would you like to promote?
Yeah, totally. I make music as Filthburger, playing shows around Kansas City, working towards an album. I also write stories. I just got a horror story published in something called the Octopus Anthology, which is edited and hand bound by someone who also pays. Each of the sales goes to some, like, portion of each sale goes to each of the authors. And so that is the Octopus Anthology Volume 3. You can get it at troctopuspress.com. That is troctopuspress.com. And then this is not out yet, but coming up, I have just recently been accepted in to be featured in a zine by the Degenerates Collective, which is a Midwestern transsexual freaks group. It is going to be very explicit, my work as well as the other people's works that are featured there, but I'm very excited to be part of that as well.
That's fucking sick. I didn't know you wrote.
Awesome.
I mean, I've listened to your album, which is very good, and people should go out and get it.
Oh yes,
I did not know that you...
filthburger.bandcamp.com.
Yes, everybody is legally obligated right now to go out and download this album. I genuinely, I didn't know that you did writing. That's fucking sick. That's awesome.
Yeah, hell yeah. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Congratulations. I should be saying congratulations. But yes, everybody go check out KT's writing, music, all of it. I command you. Less important, we have patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $1 tier, a $2 tier, and a $5 tier. $1 tier, that's the tip tier. $2 tier, that's where you start getting bonus content. Niall and I do It Gets Weird TV every other week, where we watch weird television. And then at the $5 tier, you get World of Weird, where Niall and I talk about whatever the hell we want. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday, and you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, chatting with listeners like you. KT, you're in there. We chat in there sometimes. So it's a great place to come and hang out with the sort of small but tight community that has developed around the show. So please check out patreon.com/itgetsweird, but check out all of KT's cool shit first. That's more important. And KT, thank you so much for coming on the show. As always, I appreciate that you are allowing yourself to be the Dirk Gillabel. What's a good word? Because I'll turn.
Maybe.
Sure, yes. That you're here for the Dirk Gillabel stuff. You're willing to do that with me. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Also, Instagram @filthburger_. I'm so happy to be the fool for this episode. I love to learn about this man and his weird, good vibes.
Yes. Yeah. There's so many more episodes to come of this guy. So I guarantee that KT, I'll be having you back on again for him. But I'm sure there's other stuff we can talk about too. So we'll figure something out in the future. So, this has been It Gets Weird. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about our podcast.